game is just played. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm for you! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network. Thank you for making us part of your morning routine, whether you are live on Facebook, maybe you're live on YouTube right now, or maybe you're watching us on Roku TV. Thanks to Northeast Sports Productions. Regardless of how you are here, we are glad that you are here. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well, coming off a great weekend. Just looking forward, counting down the days to the big game.
It is Super Bowl week. We know that because the Pro Bowl happened yesterday. Team NFC 1 led by Baker Mayfield. The Mannings were entertaining as always. There were some fun clips from. I didn't watch the game, Mo. I watched the highlights. There are some fun things that I saw. Again, nothing that is going to make it must-see TV for me. But like we talked about last week, I never watched Pro Bowl highlights when they were an actual football game with pads and helmets. Right. I will watch the flag football highlights, though. So I feel like we're going in the right direction.
I think they found a way to make Pro Bowl week more entertaining because obviously, like you said, when they were playing the actual games, if you want to call it that, everybody knew that the effort wasn't there. It looked like a glorified version of flag football. The real version of flag football is actually more entertaining. And the other things and events that they put around it, I think they found a way to bring the fans back into the weekend.
Mo, let's start with this. I don't like that we have to go back to this place, but I feel like it's worth revisiting. We talked a little bit last week about Cam Newton. Cam Newton made his comments in regards to Brock Purdy. He once again defined game changer, game manager versus game changer versus difference maker. He referred to the fact that Brock Purdy is not even the best player on his side of the football on the San Francisco 49ers. And in order to be somebody who is a game changer or a difference maker, you at least need to be the best player on your side of the ball. He also said that Brock Purdy isn't even one of the best players on his team. He said he's probably the 10th best player on his team, and that is where he left it. Well, Brock Purdy has clapped back against Cam Newton. Brock Purdy has come out and said, I might be the 10th best player on my team, but when I look around the league and see 90 quarterbacks in the NFL, you're not one of them. Meaning that Cam Newton is not one of the 90 best quarterbacks in all of football right now, even though Cam Newton has said, Mo, time and time again, that he is easily one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league, and there are not 32 guys today that can play the quarterback position better than him. And then, of course, Mo, as things tend to do, they took a turn towards the race. Dan Orlovsky was pulled into this, and we started to make this a black and a white comparison. Why is it, Mo, that Dan Orlovsky can go on TV and he can say whatever he wants about NFL players, and people just accept it? But when Cam Newton comes out and he says whatever he wants about players, people have to crucify him and people have to tear him down. And Mo, you may disagree with me, but I'm going to say that they're not the same. When Dan Orlovsky comes on TV, first of all, let's not forget, he is paid to do what he does. He is working for ESPN. He is on multiple shows. He does his own platform stuff as well. But 9 times out of 10, when he is doing these things, he is doing them because he is paid by a multi-billion-dollar media company to sit in front of a camera and give his opinions on football. And when he is giving those opinions, Mo, he is giving them based solely on what he believes and based on what his eyes are telling him and based on what the film says. And the one thing that he has never done, to my knowledge, is insert himself into the conversation. And that is where this fork in the road comes from, because Cam Newton is incapable of separating himself from this conversation. Cam Newton doesn't go out and say things like Patrick Mahomes is elite. And then you look at these guys and they're simply not in Mahomes' category. And as a result, I think they're game managers. He doesn't do that. What he does is he constantly circles the conversation back to himself. He calls himself a game changer and a difference maker, while also calling these other quarterbacks game managers and saying that they will never be game changers or difference makers like he was. Mo, if you're going to continuously insert yourself into the conversation, and you have every right to do so, if you think you are better than these players and you want to talk about it, by all means, talk about it. You can talk about any goddamn thing you want to talk about. But if you are going to use your platform to put yourself into the conversation and put yourself ahead of players that are making Pro Bowls and that are making Super Bowls and that are winning conference championships and that are continuously in MVP conversations, Mo, if you're going to open that door, you're going to open the door to critique yourself as well, because it doesn't work just one way. You can't say I am great and this guy isn't, and then think that no one's going to come after you and we're all just going to accept the fact that you are great because you feel like you are great. If he just stated an opinion and did not include himself in it, Mo, I feel like this would be a different conversation. Sure, some people would still go after him. I fully believe there are people out there who just don't like Cam Newton based on his personality, based on the type of player he was. But that is not the situation I believe we are currently in. If you are going to continuously insert yourself into the conversation and you are going to be the comparison, because Mo, again, he's not using other quarterbacks when he's talking about difference makers. He's not using other quarterbacks when he's talking about game changers. The only example he gives as a game changer or a difference maker is himself. So when you're saying Tua and Goff and Dak and Purdy are not game changers and they're not difference makers, and the only person that you've given that label to is yourself, who else are you comparing these guys to if not yourself? And when people push back against your stance of, oh, no, they are, and here's why, who can they push back against? You've only listed yourself as a game changer and a difference maker. And if that's the argument we're making, you're going to lose that argument 10 times out of 10 times, Cam Newton, because I think all four of those quarterbacks are better than you.
The whole thing about this situation for me is real simple. This is all about Cam Newton. Cam Newton has made it about Cam Newton. And I when he made those comments about how Purdy wouldn't be, he's probably the 10th best player on the Niners, in my head, I quickly thought to, well, if Cam were still in the league and the Niners signed him, he would be Purdy's backup. And I don't, there's no controversy. He would literally be Purdy's backup. So you wouldn't be one of the 10 best players. You probably wouldn't be one of the top 15 best players. I just think that it's easy to attack somebody when and to be fair, remember, Purdy's got a short resume. This is
not
year
even 2 seasons.
Yes, this is year 2 of his career, and we've already determined he's not actually any good. He's just surrounded by a bunch of really good players, and they make him look good. And to be fair, most really good football teams, no matter who your quarterback is, they're usually surrounded by other guys that are elite, right? Troy Aikman was surrounded by other guys. Joe Montana had other guys. We could keep. Tom Brady had some guys. Gronk was special. They had some guys around them. Look, if you want to go career for career, probably maybe in the bigger picture, Brady did more with less, but that's the reason why he is who he is. But everybody had great players around him throughout the league. Look, I look at Dak Prescott, and he's got CeeDee Lamb. He has great players around him, especially on the defensive side of the football. There are nobody that, well, he just did it completely on his own. When Cam was having his run, and he had like a 3 or 4 year run where he was one of the top players in the league, I believe. he had Steve Smith on his team. Look at those guys that he had on defense with Kuechly. I get the name wrong all the time. Kuechly, the cornerback, who's like one of the better cornerbacks in the league.
They had Josh Norman for the first 4 years of his career.
And Josh Norman. And that defense was so loaded. And they had 2 running backs. I think they were interchangeable. That were like 1,000-yard back.
D'Angelo Williams, and then that transition to Christian McCaffrey. Don't forget he had Greg Olsen on offense.
Right. And for you to be able to do that run option where they called run plays for Cam Newton, and they ran because he's not as quick as a Lamar Jackson. Cam predominantly ran between the tackles. You had a great offensive line too.
Mm-hmm.
So you had guys around you, and you were able to be successful because they placed a lot of talent around you. I have no problem with Cam Newton having an opinion. You can have an opinion, like you said, but your opinion, it needs to be about maybe with the way the game is played in general. It shouldn't always circle back to you. And my problem with him is he makes it about him. And then, like you said, Chris, if somebody pushes back, then he's a victim because somebody pushed back and go, Cam, you had a nice run. But it's not like we're going to be talking about Cam's probably going to get in the Hall of Fame. Probably not.
Cam's talking about that. Cam's saying he's a Hall of Famer because of what he did for the game. He changed the game, Mo. He was talking about that last week. He's a Hall of Famer because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't see guys doing what they're doing in the league today. He is a one-of-one original, is what he said.
Why? You know what? I'll give him that. He is original. He's different. He's a different dude, and he doesn't lack confidence. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. And I have no problem with him seeing himself as a Hall of Famer. He's not going to get in, but he has every right to believe what he wants to believe. I don't think he had a Hall of Fame career, just point blank. He didn't have a Hall of Fame career. He had a nice career. But if he's a Hall of Famer, then we need to backtrack and start thinking about how guys like Donovan McNabb's not in the Hall of Fame. We could go on and on. If he's a Hall of Famer, Lamar can stop playing right now, and Lamar is a Hall of Famer for sure because he's been more impactful and had a better career than Cam Newton has had. Look, the bottom line is I think Cam Newton, I don't think he says things without thinking them over. I think he really knows what he's doing. There's a term they use in the NBA now where they call guys free throw merchants or foul merchants. I think guys like Cam, Gilbert Arenas, Draymond Green, and others, they're click merchants, and they know what they're doing. And I get it. It works, and it works because they do have fan bases and followers who listen to what they say, and they'll go, "Cam's got a great point. He is better than Purdy." Like maybe the very best version of Cam Newton at the height of heights might be, and I say might be because it's a different football game, and Kyle Shanahan's offense is completely different from anything that Cam's played in. He might be better than the current version of Brock Purdy. I'll grant you that. But Cam Newton, who I saw on the New England Patriots, again, would be Brock Purdy's backup.
And that's the last version of Cam that we saw. And again, we don't make things up that aren't there. The reason we're saying things like if Cam was playing in the league this season, he would be Brock Purdy's backup is because from Cam Newton's mouth, he could play in the NFL as a starting quarterback this season. He said it. He said there are not 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL this season that are better than him, which means he thinks that he could start if he was given the opportunity. Well, if you were given the opportunity in San Francisco, you would not be starting. And there are a lot of teams. If we just put you on that team, you would not be starting. I struggle to think of 5. I don't know if I could come up with 5 teams, Mo, where Cam Newton should be the starting quarterback if everybody else was healthy, if everything else went as planned. Now, sure, we got some injury situations. I think maybe he should got a look in Cleveland. Maybe he could have got a look in Pittsburgh. Maybe he could have got a look in Indy. Although I think Gardner Minshew is a better quarterback today than Cam Newton is. But there are some injury situations where, sure, maybe we could have this discussion. But if you're talking everybody's healthy and everybody who is supposed to play played,
he's not starting.
You're not. I don't know where you're starting. I see the 32 guys. even rookies. I don't know where you're starting, Cam.
He's not starting.
I'm just saying, I don't see eye to eye there. And you're right, Mo. He knows what he's doing. And the only part that bothers me is the victim part. If you just want to wear it, if you just want to wear that persona of I honestly think I'm better than everyone, fine. I have no problem with an ego. Have an ego. That's perfectly okay. Like we have accepted the fact that when Micah Parsons goes on his show, what is he going to do? He is going to overinflate the Dallas Cowboys. He is going to overinflate everything related to the Dallas Cowboys. And although we think it's ridiculous, at least he's honest to his brand. That is what he's become known as. He is consistent with it, and he will do it time and time again. And we look at it now, Mo, and we're like, that's just Micah. That's what Micah does. He goes out there, and he's the biggest Cowboy cheerleader outside of Jerry Jones. So, of course, he said something crazy about how insert this Dallas Cowboy thing is better than everybody else. That's Correct. What Micah does. And I wouldn't have an issue being like, that's what Cam does. Oh, Cam had a quarterback conversation. Did it end with him saying he's the best? Did it end with him saying he's a Hall of Famer? Did it end with him putting down 6 guys currently and saying he's better than all of them? Because that's on brand for Cam. I'm okay with that. But when it ends with, and Cam has done this in interviews recently, Cam has come out and been like, I don't know why I get all this heat. I don't know why people are jumping all over me. They're not jumping all over this guy or this guy. Cam, you know why, though. You know why. So you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. If you're going to own it, and we can all move on. But don't own it and then cry about it later on because you don't like getting the backlash that you're getting. When we know you're making money off of this. We know you're getting clicks off of this.
Correct.
So don't play the victim on the other side. You think Stephen A. Smith cares? He gets clicks. He gets what he needs to get. You think Skip Bayless cares? They say things because they know it's going to move the needle. And Cam, congratulations. You move the needle. Just lean into it.
Right. Look at Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless has made a career. He's made a career off of disliking LeBron James. He's made a total career off of disliking LeBron James. And it's amazing because all he has to do is, and if you've ever watched the show, they do 2 things. Well, they used to do 3 things. They talk about the Cowboys, they talk about Tom Brady, and they talk about LeBron James. And that's pretty much every episode. Even when LeBron James is not playing, they find a way to talk about LeBron James. And he's made a career of it. And like I said, these click merchants, look, Cam's not the original. That would be Skip Bayless. He's the original click merchant. You've got other guys. Whitlock's a click merchant. There's no shortage of click merchants. My problem with Cam, though, most of the click merchants, I'll give them credit. You can read between the lines that what they're saying may be BS, but they're trying to do it in a way where they come across as analysts. When Cam does it, it's almost personal because he starts and ends it about him. He makes it about him. Well, if I were there, and this is how good I was. When you look back on my career, when you compare me to this guy and that guy, and my only problem is, like you said, when you get pushback, just own it. Be like, well, you can even say at the end of the day, my opinion is my opinion, and I'm not going to change my mind. You could start and end with that rather than go, oh, they're all coming at me. Like, if you say crazy stuff or out of pocket stuff, there will be a response. There's going to be a backlash. And my problem with Cam is he's putting it out there, but when it comes back towards him, he can't handle it.
Well, let's welcome JG onto the show this morning. I cannot believe the amount of baseball stuff that has happened in like the last 4 days. Been dying to talk to JG about it. We're going to do that right now. JG, welcome to the show this morning. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Hey, what's up, JG?
JG, we're going to go rapid fire. We got things happening in Major League Baseball. Let's start off with the Baltimore Orioles. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they think they can make these big moves. They're not the New York Yankees, but they go out and they trade for Corbin Burnes. What do you think of the deal? What do you think of what they gave up? And what do you think of their rotation for the season with Burnes in the mix?
It was a necessity. This was something that we've been saying the Orioles have needed as a frontline starter. That was what they were missing in 2023 going into the postseason. Do you have someone to give the ball to in game one in a big series? They did not have that. And they made a trade last year for Jack Flaherty, and Flaherty was not the guy that they were hoping he would be, but he hasn't been that guy for a while in St. Louis. He was actually getting passed up as the guy in St. Louis before that trade. So they did not have a frontline starter. They did not have a guy that they can give the ball to and say, you're our ace, go win us a game. They do now. Corbin Burnes is that guy, and he is that guy in Baltimore, and he gets a fresh start, and that's what he needed. He needed a fresh start out of Milwaukee. It was getting so turbulent between him and the front office, and then you throw in the managerial change with Craig Counsell going to Chicago. There were so many different things that was taking place and changes that he just did not – he was so against that he needed a fresh start. He finally gets that, and he gets an opportunity to compete with a team that was in the regular season was the best in the American League, and he gets to be the frontline guy again. So I think this was a great move for Baltimore. It was a great move for Corbin Burnes as well. I think at this point, as I said to you guys, they have to trade prospects. They have to trade some guys, and Baltimore does, because they are loaded in the minor leagues. They're loaded in their top prospect list, but they're loaded with position players. Not every one of those position players are going to make it in Baltimore in the big leagues. So you have to do something. It's current. I hate to use it this way, but this is how they looked. Prospects are currency. Mm-hmm. They're another form of currency to trade, and that's what Baltimore needed to do, and they did it, and they got the guy they need to lead the pitching staff.
Boston looked at Boston fans and said, "Oh, you want to move? We'll give you a move." Theo Epstein rejoins the Red Sox. We know that Theo is beloved in Boston. JG, what do you think of Theo 2.0 returning to Boston? Is this, on the surface, it sounds great, right? On the surface, you're going to think about all the success that Theo had in Boston. It's going to rile up Red Sox fans. Is this a move that is going to find the level of success during Theo's initial run in Boston? Is this Boston grasping and trying to bring back some of the glory days? What do you make of Theo coming home to Boston?
So it's interesting because he's not in the same role he was originally. He's a part owner and advisor, but he's not a general manager. He's not the president of baseball operations. So it's a different situation for Theo Epstein in Boston than what it was previously. So how much say does he have in regards of baseball moves? How much advisement is he going to be giving to their general manager, to the president of baseball operations to make certain moves? That's going to be the question mark. I agree. I think it's more of a, hey, we're tap into some of the past glory. We've kind of slipped. We've lost sight on who we are in Boston. We needed something that kind of gives us a little bit more of that refresher, but it has us that old feeling we used to have when we were one of the more successful franchises in the 2000s, and moving forward. So I'm curious to know what the role is going to be and how much say he will have in regards to making moves. But obviously, again, he is one of the more talented front office personnel in baseball, and he's been that way for almost 20 years. He's had success everywhere he's gone. Obviously, being part of two curse-breaking teams in Boston and in Chicago. So clearly he knows how to run a franchise. He knows how to bring in players and player development, and also looking into signing players. So again, it's more of how much say does he have, and how much advisement is he going to be allowed to give when it gets to that point.
Things are looking good if you are a Dodgers fan. Apparently, Shohei Ohtani is going to be ready for opening day. There was a lot of concern with his injury, what it would look like, when is he actually going to play this upcoming season. But Shohei's camp is saying they are very confident that he'll be ready to DH versus the Padres on March 20th. JG, are you surprised that he's going to be ready opening day? Do you think he's actually going to be ready opening day, or are they just kind of putting that out there with hopes because it's a possibility? What do you make of this?
So I think more of the fact that they're going to be in was it Korea to start the season is the goal to get him ready for, and then he's going to take some time to make sure he's rested and healthy for the season at that point. If they were not starting in Korea to start the season in Korea, I don't think we have this conversation right now. I think it's more of, hey, we'll give you the month of April to be sure you're ready to go. Because we saw this with Bryce Harper, last year. He missed some time to assure that he was going to be ready to hit. He took some time. He didn't jump straight to the lineup in the beginning of the season. He went to time off to rest and heal, make sure he was ready to go. Then he was a DH, and then he became a fielder again at first base. I think that's going to be. I think if they did not start the season in Korea, that would be the timeline we see Shohei. But because he is going to start, the Dodgers are playing Korea to start the season. You want the marketability of Shohei Ohtani in the lineup in those games. I think he will DH in those games and then probably take a few weeks to kind of let you heal up and make sure he is 100%. And then we'll see Shohei spotting in and out of the order for at least for a few weeks, and then full-time, full go. Let's go get in the order at that point. So it's a matter of, again, making sure that you have your biggest star in one of the bigger openings games that Major League Baseball will have, because you have Shohei Ohtani playing in Asia to start the season.
Just when you thought the Dodgers had closed the book on Clayton Kershaw, it appears that conversations are ongoing. Clayton Kershaw appears to be at least a target for the Texas Rangers, but as those conversations don't seem to be progressing rapidly, with opening day not that far off, it looks like the Dodgers are still keeping tabs on Kershaw and still engaging in conversations with his camp. JG, where is Kershaw ultimately going to end up? Do you like the Dodgers more, or do you like the Rangers more?
I like the aspect of him being in Texas, because I think he's going to get more opportunities to be that starting pitcher that he wants to be, and I think he still is capable of, versus if he goes to the Dodgers, where are you going to plug him in? And are you going to plug him in as a 3? Are you going to plug him in as a 4? Maybe a 5. Like, where is Kershaw going to fit into that rotation in LA? And how much? And is he going to take a discount on the process of it? Whereas in Texas, he's probably not taking a discount, and the Rangers are okay doing that because they understand what getting the hometown kid back in Texas means for them. And at the same time, their rotation is not strong right now. Obviously, with DeGrom and Scherzer's health, a big question mark. No Jordan Montgomery at the moment right now in Texas. So you go to Texas, if you're Kershaw, and you're the number 2 guy, start the season until Scherzer and DeGrom come back, and then you plug and play there, and you have a pretty deep rotation. So I'd like to see him in Texas just because there's more opportunities for him to be that starter. But I could see him going back to LA because that's home. That's his home. That's been the team his whole career. And as I said before with you guys, he wants to have that comparison of Sandy Koufax and be able to finish his career in LA. That's such an important aspect of his career, is he does want to finish in LA if LA allows him the opportunity to do so.
Let's close out here, JG. Bobby Witt Jr. and the Kansas City Royals are talking extension. He is 23 years old. He is going to be 24 in June. Let's be fair. There's some young talent on that team, but that team is obviously not in a position where they're going to be contending for championships this season or next season or probably the year after that. But he can obviously be a superstar for a young core of a team. So, and you need to sell tickets. You need people to come out and see your games. One, do you think a long-term deal gets done here with Witt? And 2, what does it look like money-wise? Because this isn't a team that necessarily, in my opinion, is going to want to spend a ton of money to lock him up, even if he's worth it, because, again, they need so much. So if you're allocating so much to one player when you're not a big market team, when you're not a big spending team, when you don't have a ton of money that you can usually allocate for these things, you give it all away to one guy, it's going to make it a lot harder to come out of the hole that you've been in for a while. What's going to happen with him in Kansas City?
Well, the other side of it too, if you're Bobby Witt, which you've been in the big leagues for 2 years now, and you've been on a last place team that has been in rebuild mode for quite a while. At what point are they getting close to it at being out of that rebuild? And that's a question for Bobby Witt that he has to ask, because again, at the end of the day, you want your money. Of course you want your money. And if that's something that you can get now, okay, sure. But at the same time are you on a franchise that is committed to winning throughout your career? I know we had the Royals in the World Series and they won the World Series quite a few years ago. And then they sold off because, again, they're a small market. As you said, they're a small market. The sustainability is very difficult for them to do such things. So if you're Bobby Witt Jr. and you want to be part of a franchise that can win, you're been talked about as the future face of Major League Baseball because of what you've been, again, family ties. Your dad was a big league pitcher for a very long time. You were a top draft pick, and by the Royals, you can be the face. Hell, they brought him to be with the Team USA in the WBC in 2023 because of what he can become. So I think that's something that he needs to take into consideration: is, are you part of a franchise that at some point in your career you're going to be part of a winning team and a winning culture? Right now, I don't know if that's the case. So if you were asking me about it, does an extension get done? I think right now, no, because the question has to be for Bobby Witt: is winning? Is there a commitment to winning? Is this rebuild going to be done? Because if I'm being tied into this franchise for a while, the rebuild has to be over. If you're going to build a young core, young team, and to compete in the American League Central, at what point is the rebuild done? I don't want to. If I'm Bobby Witt Jr., I don't want to be part of a rebuild for another 3 years. Tie myself in, basically, because you see what Salvador Perez has been dealing with. The guy has been in Kansas City since the World Series run and been through the rebuild as well. He has been living through the nightmare of the rebuild. If I'm Bobby Witt Jr., I'm not wanting to go through that.
I know Mo's got a question for you, but he's got to unmute himself. He's excited. I can tell he's excited. I can see it in his eyes.
Before you get out of here, sorry about that, guys. Before you get out of here, I know you was on the road and with your team and stuff. I just got to know how you guys did, how you guys made out.
It was a very rough weekend for us, and we only had one field practice. We've been indoors. We've had snow and ice and rain for 2+ weeks, so we've had we still been able to practice. Not an excuse, not making excuses for it. We still had to be able to compete. We played a tough team for 4 games last week, and they were good. They were a really good team, and they earned their win against us. They earned their wins against us and everything. And it took us a little bit to finally battle and compete with them, and we did. And so there's some growing pains that we're going through right now, being a part of the season, which every team is. It's one of the many factors of college baseball is you got to figure out what you have and where you're at and be able to grow from there. But again, we challenged our boys. We challenged our team with a very tough opponent who plays higher level junior college baseball than us. So again, iron sharpens iron. You get better by the tougher competition, and an aspect of is where we're at. So we play again tomorrow. We'll be on the road again tomorrow. So unfortunately, I won't be with you guys tomorrow with that. And I was make sure I mentioned that in the group message, y'all. But since I have y'all here, but we're on the road again tomorrow. We're going to take what we've learned all throughout the weekend and utilize it and be ready to go.
JG, we appreciate your time, sir. Good luck tomorrow.
JG.
I appreciate it, guys.
Mo, always great having JG on the show with us. Let's talk a little NBA, shall we? This is going to become a topic. We've briefly touched on this here and there the past couple of months. It's going to really become a topic now because of Joel Embiid. It's the 65-game requirement in order for someone to be eligible for the major awards in the NBA. Let's backtrack a little bit. The reason the league did this is because they're battling this idea of load management, and they're battling this issue of superstars just taking nights off because they don't feel like it, or they are a little sore, or they don't think the team needs them that night. Insert whatever reason you want. But it became a sort of a situation in the league where guys just weren't playing randomly for no reason, according to the league, and it hurts the product. You got families who can make it to 1 or 2 games a year, and they're not seeing the stars that they paid good money to come and see. You got stars taking time off because are they really hurt? Do they just not want to play it back-to-back? Do they just not want to go up against another superstar? Maybe it's a Wednesday night and it's superstar versus big superstar, and one of them's like, I don't really feel like it. Because if we lose this meaningless regular season game, I don't feel like listening to the narrative for the next 3 weeks about how so-and-so is better than me.
Right.
Like, and if you think that those aren't some of the internal conversations, you're wrong, because it definitely is. Because I'm sure that's annoying for players. So what the league does is they say, listen, you need to play your stars if they're healthy. If your stars are healthy and you don't play them, we're going to fine you. And it's going to be an escalating scale. More importantly, stars, if you want to be recognized as stars and win those awards and get those accolades for being awesome, you need to play in a certain amount of games. And that threshold was 65. So now we look at Joel Embiid, and he most likely is not going to meet the 65-game threshold. And there's going to be a legitimate question now, Mo, when they name an MVP, whoever it is, the commentary is most likely going to be, yeah, but Embiid played 51 games and was absolutely, without question, the league MVP in those 51 games. But because he was 14 shy, he didn't qualify for it. So by default, it went to player B. And now the question that's going to be asked, Mo, is should the NBA insert something to combat that? Should there be an injury waiver? Should there be some sort of exception that takes place for the NBA to be like, listen, we know that Embiid didn't hit 65. We're going to credit him 18 games because for 18 games, he couldn't have played even if he wanted to because he was legitimately injured. So we're going to credit him back 18, and now he does meet the threshold, so he can qualify. Mo, is that something you think the league should look into moving forward?
And we talked about this a little bit last week, and it is something I think the league needs to look into. Look, the 65-game rule, the standard, that's new. That's new. And like any new rule or any change, you can tweak it and amend it to improve it in little ways. I know we talked about how guys can go to their personal doctors and get them to sign off on anything, right? No, he can't play because of that. I get that, and that's true. But the flip side is the same way the league can amend this and go, we're going to credit Joel Embiid or Kawhi Leonard 15 games because he couldn't have played if he wanted to with the injury he has. Well, when a guy says, I need to sit out or whatever, I think that there should be a process. Your team can say, well, he can sit out because he's got knee soreness or whatever. Then maybe you have to have a league official go in there and go, well, I need to know specifically what kind of league soreness he's had. What did he get X-rays? Did he get an MRI? Why is he not able to compete? I really do think they should find different ways to amend this. So yes, look, if they amend it, they won't do it this year, but if they amend this rule, then Joel Embiid will have a shot to win back-to-back MVPs. And I'm sure there won't be a shortage of people who will vote for him. He might still lose. He might very well lose because, Chris, we judge off of what we see. So let's say if a guy like Giannis or Joker, who've already played great, by the way, numbers-wise, they're right there, but they finished out the season, and all we see is them putting up crazy numbers and leading their teams. One of them is probably going to be the MVP, right? You they're right in front of you. You see them every day, and the injured guy kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But I do think the league should make some kind of amendment, some kind of change to balance the scales from guys that are low managing and guys that have legit injuries. Like in the case with Embiid now, he's had meniscus surgery. He's not going to be back. I mean, best case scenario for the Sixers, he might be back at the end of the season. That's best case scenario. He might not play again the rest of this season.
It's a slippery slope because, like you said, you can get a doctor to say whatever you need a doctor to say on paper, right? So if you got a guy who is coming back from a knee surgery and maybe he's cleared to go, but maybe a doctor's like, he shouldn't be playing back-to-backs, or he shouldn't be playing, he needs to reduce his load management by 50%, which means every third game he has to take off. What do you do with that, right? And how can we determine, because take someone who just had a major surgery and they rehab and they're ready to go. Most guys don't come back full speed. Most guys want to ease back into it.
Right.
What does that look like? Because at that point, they're clear, right? At that point, they're clear to play.
Right.
So at that point, do you say, you don't got to play the whole game? Come back and play the 20-minute minimum. But then at that point, you're also dictating what it looks like for the team on the floor, because now you're creating a battle where the guy's like, I want to play, coach. And the coach is like, but you're not really there yet. And us putting you in for 20 minutes so you can get that game mark is actually more detrimental to the team, because I wouldn't play you at all right now. So now I got to figure out how to work you in for 20 minutes when you're only at 75%. And now you're doing more harm than good being out. Like that's a weird gray area that
Agreed.
you don't really want to get into. So for me, and I like your idea. I like the idea of there being like a league official doctor and not a team doctor. And maybe the exception is as simple as, if you have a procedure done, you'll be given a timeline according to the NBA league doctor, who is going to follow up with the person who did the procedure. And whatever that timeline is, that's the exemption. So if the timeline is 6 weeks, we will excuse you for all of those games during that 6-week period. After that, it's back on you. If recovery didn't go as well as it was supposed to, if your rehab didn't go as well as it was supposed to, if there was a complication, it is what it is. We gave you the 6-week timetable. Sometimes stuff happens. We gave a little bit on our end. You needed to make it work on your end. If it doesn't work, it is what it is. Maybe that's we see it, we're going to try to change it. Because I feel like, Mo, if you get outside of that, if you get outside of, well, it was 6 to 10 weeks, and now it's closer to 10, and we can't rush him back. He can't just come back and start playing, 38 minutes.
Right.
He's going to have to miss a few gigs. Once you start getting into that, I feel like we're doing too much. So I get it. Just saying 65 and drawing the line might be too black and white.
It is, but I think it's a good rule.
But if you want to give a little, the only unless I'm missing something, that's the only thing I can see. Because if you go past that, if you go past you just had surgery, this is the timetable we're going to give you because your doctor and other professionals, including our guy, says that's a fair timeline. If you go deeper than that, I feel like you're getting really, really murky
and really complicated.
Right. And I don't think you want to be there if you're the NBA.
No, I'm with you 100%. Look, in the big picture, a lot of players are angry now about the 65-game rule. But what I would say to them is that rule got put in place. By the way, you signed off on it. The player signed off on it.
Correct.
It got put in place because guys were literally just taking off because they didn't feel like it. Yep. They didn't feel like playing. Yep. And I get how a lot of fans will go, well, if they were injured, if he said he was sore, he was sore. It's easy for you to say until it's your city, right? And he doesn't play in your city, and you've bought these expensive tickets for your family, and they don't show up when you guys are there. Then you have a different tone. So the rule is a good rule, but what we've been talking about this morning, yes, they should amend it. Don't overcomplicate it, but they should amend it for really legitimate, serious injuries. I agree with that 100%.
Well, the Clippers are 25-5 over their last 30 games, which almost aligns perfectly with the arrival of James Harden in Los Angeles. I think 30 games in, 25-5, I think it's fair to look at the situation with James Harden and say, hey, this has been a success. Now, it's only 30 games. NBA season is not 30 games long. half an NBA season is not 30 games long, all right? You're looking at about 35, 40% of the season where it's been a success. Obviously, the next question we're going to ask, how do they finish and what does it look like come playoff time? Then we're going to have the ultimate conversation of was it or wasn't it a success? But Mo, isn't this what we're seeing right now? The best case scenario that could have happened for all parties involved within this situation? 25-5 over their last 30.
No, it's here. So here's the thing: when the trade was first announced, I heard people going like, "Well, the Clippers, he's just going to ruin their chemistry. They don't need him." I was one of those people. I was highly touting it. I said Harden is perfect for them because as a point guard, he's going to get them into their spots. They need a legit facilitator. They didn't have that. Paul George and Kawhi are capable of creating for others, but they're not point guards. Harden has the ability to manipulate offenses and catch guys and put them in their spots. And initially, as we know, it didn't look so good. Like everything I was saying didn't look so good because they were horrible. They had lost like the first 7 or 8 games with James Harden, and people were like, "I told you it would ruin their chemistry," and I didn't understand why. But I realized the biggest complication was they were trying to start him and Russell Westbrook, and that there's no way that was going to work. That was gonna it was causing spacing issues, and they didn't have any floor balance. Once Russ said, "Look, I'm good with coming off the bench," when he said, "I'm good for that," they took off. They took off. And the chemistry between James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, it looks like they've been playing together for years. So right now, you look at the Clippers and you think this is one of the deeper, more balanced teams in the NBA. Going forward, for me, it will always come back to this for the Clippers, as it has been the last 4 years. Health. It comes back to health. If the Clippers go into the playoffs healthy, they're going to be in the Western Conference Finals. I guarantee that. If they go into the playoffs healthy, they will be in the Western Conference Finals. They have that much talent. They have that much depth. With the Clippers, though, Kawhi might go down, Paul George might go down, maybe even Harden. That has been their curse around the postseason, health. So if they enter the postseason healthy, you are looking at a legitimate title contender.
Well, we're about 50 games into the NBA season, and it could not be tighter in the Western Conference. One game separates the top 4 teams currently in the West. The Thunder and the Timberwolves are tied at 35-15. The Nuggets are a half game out, and the Clippers are 1 game back. So you have 4 teams all under an umbrella at the top of the Western Conference. And don't say the regular season doesn't matter, because Mo, you finish with a 1 seed, you're usually going to get a pretty comfortable opening series in the playoffs. So seeding 1 seed and 4 seed are a complete different story when it comes to your opening round matchup in the playoffs. So don't sit here and say this morning, if you are a fan of any of these teams, as long as we finish up there, it doesn't matter. No. 1 and 4, you get a completely different opening matchup.
It is. I mean, if you're the 4th seed, you get a 4-5 matchup. You get a team that's going to challenge you even more, and you're going to beat each other up. And the winner of that series is going to be worse for the wear going into the next round. So it does matter. Seeding matters, and I think it matters even more so for these veteran teams. If you're the defending champion Nuggets, I think the Nuggets are they love to get the number 1 seed, but I think they'd be okay with 2. They would still get a favorable matchup. Their goal, of course, is to get back to the Western Conference Finals and defend their Western Conference championship, defend their NBA championship. So I think seeding absolutely matters, especially because matchups matter, obviously, in the NBA. Some teams just match up better than other teams. You look at the Timberwolves, and it's led by a dynamic talent in Anthony Edwards, and they're one of the better defensive teams in the league. You look at OKC, they're led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a dynamic talent, but they're also a very young team. They're very unique. This Thunder team, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of the KD, Russ, Harden, Ibaka, that Thunder team where I think 4 of their top players were 22 and under. It was crazy. And it has that kind of talent, but I think they have even a little bit more depth. The crazy thing about OKC is with all this talent, all this success that they're having right now, Chris, this team, I think they still have like 18 number 1 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you going to do with all those picks? You know what I'm saying? Like, they have a treasure trove of picks, and I feel like, how does Sam Presti deploy those or use those? Because it's not like you're starved for talent. Look at your team. You've got Chet Holmgren on there, Jalen Williams, and Shea is the old man at 25. That's scary.
It's a nice problem to have, Mo.
Yes, it is.
So we said there's a blanket thrown over the first 4 teams in the West. In the East, there is a blanket thrown over the teams vying for the 2nd seed. The Celtics at 38-12, 5 games or more up on the rest of the conference. But that 2nd seed right now, 2 games separate the Bucks, the Cavs, the Knicks, and the 76ers. Again, seeding matters in the playoffs. The difference between the 2 seed and the 5 seed, well, first of all, it's a road game. It's a road series. Yeah. So that's the immediate difference. But even if you look at it and you say, listen, the Bucks are going to win the East as long as my team gets in there. No, you want the 2nd seed. You want to be the 2 seed. And then the only time you will potentially have to play a road series would be against Boston. So don't underestimate seeding in the NBA. It is an important thing. If you are underestimating it, I question how much of a fan you are. But Mo, let's pivot to this. This one got me. This one confused me. I read the story 3 times, and I still didn't understand it. John Harbaugh, head coach of the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, I know where you're going.
He has come out, and he has said that Lamar Jackson wants to be even more involved in the offense moving forward. And I looked at that, and I didn't understand the headline, and I thought maybe it was just a poorly written headline. So I read the story 3 times. And basically, the gist of it is that Lamar wants to be in more meetings, and he wants to have more say about the structure of the offense and the plays that they're implementing on offense. And Coach Harbaugh talked about how Lamar he's just having these conversations now with the offensive minds about defensive play structure and what he's seeing on the other side of the ball and what he's seeing on the tape. And he's just ready to take all of that and infuse it into the game plan, not just on the field, Mo, but in the prep process as well. And I finished reading that, and I said to myself, well, what the hell has Lamar Jackson been doing for the last 6 years? Now, year 7 is the year that he wants to help structure the offense. Year 7 is the year that he wants to give input on more play design, and he wants to share with you what he sees on the other side of the field when he's standing in the huddle and when he's watching tape. Year 7, Mo, that's where we're going to have this conversation. Why wasn't this happening year 2 or 3 once all the rookie kinks were worked out? Why wasn't he being woven into the system year 2 or 3? Now at year 7, apparently Lamar Jackson is ready to be a big boy quarterback, even though he's about to be a 2-time MVP. Now he's ready to be a bigger part of the offense. Mo, I don't know how to walk away from this article thinking to myself, you shouldn't have said any of that. You shouldn't have even have had that. This does nothing for Lamar Jackson in a positive way at all.
I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. I've enjoyed watching him play over the years. And here's the funny thing. This is the naive part of me as a fan. I thought he was in that room talking with the coordinators, trying to get better, to develop. Like, am I wrong when you listen to people talk about him? They're like, this is a different Lamar. He's been working on his reads and his being able to recognize the different coverages. They were saying all those things, but if you listen to Harbaugh, like I said, it's a weird. And it's funny because when you hear weird stuff coming from a Harbaugh, it's usually Jim Harbaugh,
right?
But John Harbaugh, who people think is the more sane Harbaugh, he also started this out with a really weird car analogy, and I don't know
that
where he
made
was
no
going with
sense.
that. Was so bizarre. That car, I don't know what he was talking about. We're gonna get Lamar in his car, and we get this car set up, and we're gonna. What are you talking about, man? And then when you find out, well, Lamar's ready to get into the quarterback room. He wants to get with the coordinators. He's talking about being able to read defenses, recognize coverages when he comes up to the line of scrimmage. And I was like, I thought they were already working on that, man. Like I had no clue. Like, so this is all he was just doing everything he was doing on natural talent. Like he hadn't been in the quarterback room. He's not part of those meetings. He's your franchise quarterback. And in year 7, you're like, I really need to get in my playbook. I really need to get with the coordinators and really start looking at ways that I can recognize coverages and read defenses and get through my reads. And I'm like, look, don't get me wrong. It's great that he's there. I just thought that he was already there. I would have assumed he was already there.
Mo, the closest thing I can relate it to is a NASCAR driver who is just a really good driver, but doesn't really understand mechanics of a car, right? Like if you're a NASCAR driver and you're just naturally gifted at racing, but maybe you don't know, you couldn't put an engine back together to save your life, right? Like you are not mechanically inclined,
right?
But I will race the tires off of anything you give me. And more time than not, I'm going to be successful. Maybe it's that situation where you're like, listen, Mo, we know you're a great driver, but we're getting a little tired of when things are going wrong in the car in a race. You're describing it to us as it's making a noise. We need you to do better than it's making a noise. We need you to know what noise it's making so we can do our job to help you. Maybe it's that. But Mo, if it's that, it's not good. It's year 7. So I don't want to hear that going into year 7.
It's very unique is all I'll say. And I look, again, there's no question he's gifted. You wouldn't be someone who's getting ready to be, like you said, a 2-time MVP if you weren't a terrific football player. But if you're doing this all on just pure ability and you don't know how to read defenses or you can't recognize different coverages, that I don't know how to put that. Like in one way, I'm more impressed with your natural ability, but on the other hand, that means in situational football, you're trying to do situational football with one arm tied behind your back because you really hadn't been in your playbook. You really aren't on the same page with your coordinators. Like they give you a play, you go out to execute the play, but you really don't know the nuances of the coverages or when you send a man over and he's followed or he's not followed. They're not in man. Like you don't know those nuances. That's just surprising to me in year 7.
Well, before we get out of here, let's end with this. Doc Rivers is going to be coaching the All-Star game. He gets to coach the All-Star game because he is currently the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Let's call it a job perk, if you will.
It's a big perk.
It's a big perk. He has come out and he has said, listen, I am going to give the check and I'm going to give the ring to Adrian Griffin.
That's cool.
It's also awkward. Right? Like,
so in other words, you're saying for a job well done, buddy.
Right.
Even though the job was so well done, I replaced you.
Like, I like the gesture. I get it. He's acknowledging I didn't earn the ring. I didn't earn the check. It's already a weird situation. It rightfully belongs to him. I almost feel like, Mo, it didn't need to be said. Just kind of get it to him. Make sure he gets it. He'll appreciate it. But once you're like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to give him the check. And like charity, pity, you start to look at those things and you're like, the guy already got fired.
Right.
Now, right? Like, I don't know. It's an awkward situation.
So I think Doc meant well, but it would have been better. What's that thing? I'd rather have a deed that's done than said, right? Like
Correct.
Just do it. You don't really need to tell us you're going to do it.
And then we can hear in the background, did you know Doc did this? That's really
right.
Cool.
Exactly. Maybe Adrian Griffin says it one day, like, Doc really did something great for me when I was feeling pretty low, right?
Right.
That would be a great story.
All right, Mo. Great Monday show. Close us out, sir.
Thank you so much for tuning in to us. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Check out all the great content that we have to offer to you from Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you're back here same time, same place tomorrow. We got some WWE stuff happening. People are not happy with The Rock. We're going to get into all of that and more tomorrow morning here on Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey,